Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Jessica Shaw, host of Sirius XM Stars Pop Culture Spotlight. Before we're joined by our guest today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $7 million in COVID relief to more than 7,500 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce actor Ben Foster of The Survivor. Hey, Ben.
Hello, Jessica.
It's so nice to see you, and congratulations on yet another extraordinary performance. I wanted to just start because this was a film that you were attached to. It feels like years ago because, of course, pre-COVID feels like 7 bazillion years ago. But do you remember the first meeting you had about this and what it was of this character of Harry Haft that resonated with you?
Yeah, I got a call from Barry. And when you get a call from Barry, it's exciting. And he said, I have this thing. I want you to take a look at it. Very casual. Read it right then. Called him right back. And I'd love to do it. And he's like, all right, great. And, it was that casual. Mm-hmm. And then we got on the horn and with our producing team and then you start looking at how are we going to do this? 3 decades of a man's life, and then you start really getting into some practicalities or potentials.
Yeah. Well, tell me about that. How did you plan out? I mean, obviously it involves production and all sorts of things, but just as an actor, order-wise, what was the plan and what did you think would work for you? Because like you said, you're filming in different time periods where you look drastically different. And I imagine the performance on many levels has to be very different because he's gone through he's at different points in his life of what he's gone through.
Sure. It's described in the script that Harry has dropped an enormous amount of weight as he's in a concentration camp, and it was discussed. They said, "Okay, well, we have this incredible digital technology. It's cutting edge, and we can shrink you down, and we can build you up, and everything in my body at that time just said that we can't do that." It wasn't a flex. It was, I personally can't do this movie. Like I wouldn't know how would we do? I wouldn't be able to face myself with this material. We had the time, and we had about 5 months out to shoot, and I said, well, if I can't drop the weight, I don't know how to do it. Mm. And which presents a greater problem, or another problem, which is how do you put it back on? And then how do you add age? So we worked it out with production where we were able to start in the camps. So I was able to start losing the weight right then. And then the plan was, after we shoot the camps out, we would shoot relatively in order, which is unusual and a great luxury. We took 5 weeks off to put 50 back on. So lost 62 pounds in prep. And it was a wild, raw way to study the material and study boxing and losing, and was I wouldn't necessarily jump to do it again. And I don't encourage anyone to do that. But there was a quality of that experience that, and it's so dangerous because it can come off as so insane or ridiculous or both. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful to be looking at these photos and studying with our Yiddish teacher, and it puts you in touch with a really raw self. So,
yeah.
And then the last section of the film, I just able to eat pizza and drink wine, and that was great.
Right. It's very interesting to me because the people watching, I mean, as this is for SAG-AFTRA, this is an audience of performers. And I have to say, I love that you said, you know what? Yes, we could do computer effects and make me emaciated, but in order to really find this character and, you know, I mean, obviously you're not going to experience what he experienced, but to try and, just to try and live in his skin, even a little bit, that you needed to do that as a performer.
Needed it. And knowing, intuiting, I hadn't lost that kind of weight before, that it was going to inform the rest of the film. It was going to inform Harry in the rest of his life. And a lot of it was just, I suppose, pride as well. I couldn't imagine walking on set having lost 15 pounds. And I mean, we went to Auschwitz in preparation. We touched the rails. I just kept saying, this is the last movie that we get to make. This is the last one we get to make. We don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow. This is my church.
Yeah.
And the work is in service. And there are survivors, and the children of survivors are going to see this. How dare you think that you can just stop eating Doritos for a week or whatever your deal is? It has to be a work of prayer. So with that mindset, it became, it's interesting when you start reducing your consumption, your mind can drift. And I will say it was when you're hungry by choice, not by real life circumstance, which is very important distinction. This was an active choice to have an experience personally. Mm-hmm. It was I'm glad for it.
What did Barry say when you had that conversation? Obviously, you worked with him. You've known him for decades now. Worked with him in Liberty Heights. He knows you. He knows your commitment to a role. What did he say when you said, you know, I've been thinking I might actually lose 62 pounds?
Well, it wasn't. I didn't have like a target exact right off the bat. It was more just a reaction, just be like, well, I'll do it. We have the time. He's like, yeah, you can use some. I mean, don't have to go crazy. He's very casual on the surface, but he's constantly doing math or life math, behavior math. But by the time we got there, it was. I wanted to. It wasn't so much like I've got to reach this, though we did have Harry's recorded weight, and the movie isn't about weight loss or weight gain. The body is what we work with. This is our home. This is it's a sensual job, and the more that I can feel in my body that there's some sort of reality to this, I don't have to think so much. And that's really the goal, is not having to think and just feel it and feel the music of it. But by the time we shot, we got down to, dropped 62. And finding that edge of training the box at the time, your body, you keep thinking like, that's it, that's as far as I want to go. That's it, that's as far as I want to go. But you find resources. And because it was a choice and not life circumstance, it was exciting to, I don't want to say effortlessly, but by the time we walked on set into a 360-degree concentration camp that they built from the ground up, it was very easy to fall into the nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting what you said a couple minutes ago about that you knew that there were going to be survivors and children and grandchildren of survivors watching this. The film is based on a book written by Harry's own son. Yeah. And I was wondering how you approached that, like how much you wanted to talk to either relatives of his or people that knew him at some point, or just because I imagine you have to create this person and your version of this person. And I know that it's always, an interesting push and pull of how much do you want to know other people's perspectives of him?
It was, we worked with the Shoah Foundation, and they provided us great access. And the beginning of preparation for me, beyond just getting in a training situation and a diet, was listening to the survivors, listening to the testimonies. It wasn't just Harry. We do have Harry. But I wanted those voices. I wanted to saturate my mind, or I just wanted those vibrations in my head. So countless hours of listening to testimonies. It felt more like a choir rather than a one voice. So with that in mind, when I was watching Harry's testimony, you have to follow your again, how does it, what's your spidey sense say? What's your gut say? What's your gut saying? And it was like, I can't do an impression of this man. I don't want to do an impression of him. I want an essence. I'm hunting an essence, something that's lived in. And that will come not from his friends or his family, it will come from the other voices. And then in tandem, working with the Yiddish expert here in New York, we located, I mean, we nerded out. I mean, which is the best, where we located the sound, the dialect of the particular area in Bełchatów, Poland, that he was from, how his vowels would sound, how speech would sound. And we started grounding that was more important than actually speaking to Alan. I was probably, because I haven't thought about it, but I was probably afraid to speak to Alan. People, the children of survivors are touched by those traumas.
Yeah. And
because I didn't know, and I hadn't been directly in that way, I felt I would somehow be an imposition, or I would be out of line. Like I didn't know enough to ask the right questions. So to me, it was just find the man inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was there anything in particular after you read the script, maybe before you worked with the Shoah Foundation and listened to all of these stories and these accounts, and I agree, I've listened to many and they're extraordinary, was there anything you felt like as you read the script that you needed to understand, or you needed further elaboration on, or answers to?
I suppose it was it's all questions. Plainly, we're 2022. The anti-Semitism is skyrocketing. The betrayal of Jews in general in the media hasn't evolved all that much. And it bothers me. So it was very important that we honor the culture with strength, because it's one thing to be a moody, unhappy victim, but that's not Harry. Harry is morally ambiguous.
Yeah.
And it's those questions and asking them as clearly as possible was more what I was after. I was much more interested in the gray.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I that was one of the things I thought was so special about your performance, is that you could see that you as an actor, Ben, you are not the judge and jury on him. And in some way, and in that way that you inhabit him without passing judgment on him, even as there are scenes in the film, people around him are passing judgment on him. And anyone can understand that. And anyone can also understand when you do what you need to do to stay alive. And I thought that I was, as a viewer, it really resonated. And I found it very powerful in the film that there is no, okay, we're giving him a free pass, or we are condemning him, and I thought that was a really important. I was wondering if that was something that you talked to Barry about sort of living in the morally ambiguous space.
Well, the book that the script is based on was written by Alan, Harry's son. And by no means is it a glowing review. That was a tough ride for those kids.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was the camps, but it was the result of the camps that raised those children, or they shared a house with. So the conflicts therein were pretty apparent. But any time that something felt pat or convenient, Barry's allergic to, so that makes my job a lot easier. You don't have to. Sometimes you're kind of being like, "Let's go this way, guys. It's this. We've seen this scene 1,000 times. Let's go for like what's happening right now." And usually it's okay, but Barry's just got an allergy to it, which is wonderful. As example, there's a scene later on in the picture where Harry is. He's older, he's talking to his wife, and as written, he says something to the effect of, she says, "You got to tell your boy, you got to tell your son, you got to tell him where you're from." It's like, why would I do that? And he just turns his back on her and just says, "You don't know the worst part of me." And as written, she's supposed to see him by the sink, get up from the chair and embrace him and make it all better. But Barry and Vicky, who I didn't know this was happening, had a discussion, and I wasn't privy to it. And I was told later that he said to Vicky, out of my earshot, saying, kind of antagonize him and don't give him a hug. Don't give him that. See what? And she's like, "Should we tell Ben?" And apparently he says, "Nah." So we're doing the scene as we'd done, and she starts asking me these questions. And I'm all game for improv. That's not the issue, but it was actually hurting my feelings. I was like, "Where's my hug?" And that caused me to start talking about what it was that wasn't said in the script initially, which was killing my best friend. And because we had already shot it, the memory was there. So I told it in real time, and then she started antagonizing me. And or Harry, and there was a pitcher of orange juice, and I hadn't thought about it, but I hit it, and it went all over the set. We finished the scene out. You're like, "What was that?" And you have to clean it up, and we got it, and that was the take. And it was a surprise, but staying in those uncomfortable human relation points. Are the waters that Barry likes to swim in, and certainly where I feel most present. Mm-hmm. And that's not what you would say is a scene that's poor me. It's a man who's struggling for connection and doesn't know how.
Yeah, absolutely. As an actor, as you look back on that day, are you grateful that Barry and Vicky didn't say anything to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the surprise is a little, we have to ride ourselves as actors. We have to keep the highest of standards of being with each other, not at each other, with each other. So when something sparks, I imagine it's similar to music. When musicians get together and you get a jam, and it's just take it, just go. And they're fleeting moments, but if you've done your homework and you're present, sometimes you get lucky and a surprise will happen, and it can turn a scene completely into something else. And those discoveries are the drug that I chase.
Mm-hmm. I also thought the scene where Harry is telling the story about the prisoner who goes back for his cap, is that I thought that was such a, just the way that you just tell the story in that moment and in that scene, and the pacing of it, of your voice. And I know how was that scene for you?
I think we did it in 2 takes. Mm-hmm. The take that's in the movie is the first take. It's such a special piece of writing. Mm-hmm. It's Talmudic. It asks the question for us all, and it presents the question to the audience of, what would you do? And what's the cost of that? And rather than giving an answer to it, it's letting that question hang. So for me, I'm not, a lot of people are like, I want my monologue. I get a little nervous. You get nervous because I don't, my wife, who's a wonderful actor, she's got a photographic memory. She opens up a script, she looks at it, she's like, guys, I'm not that way. It takes me a long time. It's painful. And when I see big chunks of dialogue, if I don't see it, I can't remember it. So the task for me, the way that my processing works, is that I have to do a lot of extra heavy lifting to compensate for. I have to build the world mentally, mm-hmm. and that's labor. We'll call this blue collar psychic labor, which is finding a place, closing my eyes, or drawing it out. The environment, the hat, the guy. Like, I have to be able to bring that volume up so I can see it, as I can't remember lines so well. But when you're doing a play in particular, hopefully you have the luxury of rehearsal to really get it in your body. But it takes me an awful long time. I think subsequently, once I've built the world, I can go anywhere. And then I can remember anything. Mm-hmm. But I got to see the guy with the cap. I got to be able to see him in my mind. I got to be able to smell it.
Yeah. I mean, and in the way that you told it, you as Harry, I could see it. I mean, literally could see him walking back, and it was so that's interesting that's you kind of have to see it before you say the words, and then as someone is listening to you, they have the same experience.
It's wild, right? When you're with a loved one, you can read their mind. You know what they're thinking about. And they can with you. And it's at its best. When work feels the best, it's as though not the camera, because you're not playing to camera on some level, I'm sure, but you're transmitting. And there's much we don't know about the human mind. There's so much we don't know about consciousness and the way that a clear vision could possibly be received without saying something. Maybe this is esoteric and a little woo-woo. I'm fine with that. I hope that the brighter, the more vivid, the sensual experiences inside my body, I can transmit it with ease. It takes a lot of extra time to build that world building. sensorial world building for transmission. It's not a very catchy title for a book.
Write it. You never know.
I don't know.
What was it like for you when you wrapped? I mean, I have to imagine, I know that, I've spoken to different actors, and some people just walk off set and they can leave it behind. Some people have a ritual, like a kind of bathing ritual almost, to leave a character behind. And I was wondering, what was it, or if anything, for you?
It's such a peculiar line of work that we do. And everybody's got a different way, and one way is not the right way for everybody. I'd be lying to say that my self-care was at its best. Because reintegration's strange for anybody doing anything in a focused way. If we're spending 8 months, including the shoot, 7 months thinking about one thing. It could be baseball, it could be crochet. If you're just focusing on that intensely, when you're done doing it, you're going to be thinking about crochet for a little bit. You're going to be thinking about baseball for a little bit. And there's definitely some exhaust that comes off. Not exhaustion, that can happen, but the exhaust of saying, I don't know where to put my thoughts. And I think self-care post-work is something I could be better at. Because it goes between the divine and self-involved woo-woo nonsense. And it's always right down the line where you're like, I'm touching something that's other. And it's totally ridiculous that this is wrapped up, has occupied so much space. But I think it's natural. I think it's natural. I should probably get into like a bathing ritual. I don't know. It was a bumpy landing. Was having dreams of the camps for months and months. Wake up, night terrors. Again, you're looking at the horrors of the world. So I don't think it's unnatural to be affected by something like that. But my wife was patient.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it also just speaks to how deeply immersed you were in this character, and I think that it comes through so thoroughly. It's really a very special. I'm really in awe of your performance. I hope that everyone tells everyone they know to watch The Survivor. It's on HBO Max on April 27th. Ben Foster, congratulations on this role. And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your process, and your craft with your fellow performers. And thank everyone. Thank you all so much for tuning in for this. And Ben, well done. Bravo. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica.
It was great to talk to you.
Thank you, Tribe.